Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast, talking about college football in about 15 minutes. And we have a big show tonight talking about the top 5 games in the college football season. To break it all down and discuss, I have Tyler Moore joining me to hop on the show. But again, we're just at that part of the season, guys. It's May heading into June, and as we know, the depth charts are starting to get settled. Spring is behind us. Now we're into the thicket of the summer, heading into August, and here we go. Top 5 matchups, and to break it all down and discuss, I got my guy Tyler Moore. Tyler, what's up, man?
Not too much, man. It's crazy that it's the end of May already. We're getting ramped up for this college football season, so it's pretty exciting.
I think we said it before, man. There's no offseason. Like, we springboard from the title games to spring games to the transfer portal, which never seems to stop.
Yeah,
and then here we are, man.
And that's what kind of really makes it feel like there's no offseason is the transfer portal, because you have like the first window and the second window and all the news that comes in between. So like you said, there's really nothing, especially like with the draft like smack dab in between them. So I'm excited to get this top 5 started.
Which is hard, man, because it makes it hard to prognosticate the teams too.
Yeah.
Like, even like you have your rankings, your top 25 rankings that happen like right after. With that portal constantly moving and constantly shifting, it's hard to kind of tell who's where. But and for that reason alone, man, we have a lot of intrigue on the schedule this year and tonight's show. So what we wanted to do here on the Freshman 15 tonight was kind of look at, in a collab, if you will, with me and Tyler, look at the top 5 games on the schedule for college football. And we're going to just kind of go like alternate. For example, Tyler, I'll have, you'll go first with the honorable mention. I'll have 5, 3, and 1. You'll have 2 and 4. That makes sense. But before we get started, guys, once again, hit the like button, hit the sub button to follow us here. You can follow me on Twitter at SDQ Flight Crew. Tyler at...
I changed it. Yeah, the FNF dad. Football and fishing dad. There we go.
My man, what's up? So... hit that like button, hit that sub button, watch out for the shorts on YouTube as well, and IG. So, yeah, the Freshman 15 podcast. So, Tyler, man, so you said that you had an honorable mention that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just going to briefly cover this because I know you have this same team later on. But my honorable mention for this season is going to be Texas at Bama. Texas was giving Bama last year a run for their money with Steve Sarkisian. And then, Quinn Ewers goes down. Card basically takes him to the brink, but they still end up losing to Alabama. And that was a nail biter. So I'm curious to see how Texas plays without Bijan Robinson and their other running back. But Quinn Ewers, he should be a Heisman finalist. So it's pretty exciting to see how he's going to play against the Nick Saban defense in Tuscaloosa. So that's why it's my honorable mention.
So you mentioned Texas, right? And I kind of looked at Texas' schedule, and here's the thing. So for my number 5 game, kind of a curveball, but I think it's one of those games that are going to catch you kind of off your couch without thinking about it, and that's going to be Kansas going to Texas. And here's why. I mean, there's no denying the talent with the Longhorns. They have a bunch of talent that returned. You have Ewers back, Worthy's back once again, now fully healthy with the hand. And this game actually has barn burner potential. And the reason why I think with Steve Sarkisian is that he has times where the guys are not prepared fully, right? The game's kind of get away from them, especially late in the games towards the end. It kind of gets away. You mentioned the game with Bama last year, right? That's another example, kind of the game kind of being within their grasp, but Texas does the Texas thing and it kind of gets away late. Even the game with TCU, for an example. And I think that's where you just look at that. Look at the Jayhawks last year, where they were. They actually were kind of a feisty team, really, if you think about it. They were kind of pesky in a lot of close games. I think they had 5 games decided by 1 score in the midst of a competitive Big 12 conference. Then you look at them last year winning the last 5 games on the calendar. And again, I know that depth charts will change and things are kind of moving, but whether or not they decide to go with their quarterback, Jalen Daniels, or Jason Bean, it still makes for a great matchup. Plus, you have Devin Neal that we talked about last year, who had a big game last year against Oklahoma State, 224 on the ground. And again, Texas, kind of susceptible to the ground game if you let them. So, number 5 on the calendar in a sneaky matchup is going to be Kansas at Texas on September 5th. Check it out, man.
Yeah, that first week is loaded because that kind of rolls right into mine, and I believe it's the same week. And that's going to be LSU versus Florida. Last year is nail biter. I believe LSU, no, LSU won 24-23 in a nail biter. And we've seen a lot of love throughout the season for both those quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and Jordan Travis. And they're not always like consistent quarterbacks, but you see the potential there. You see those highlight-worthy plays, and it just makes you like that wow moment. I think it was Jordan Travis that had that crazy where he spun away from everybody last year. And I know you're a big Florida State hater, so. I know you're gonna be rooting for LSU hard in this one, but this year it shouldn't be any different between those two teams. Both are essentially running it back. Like I said, Seminoles quarterback Jordan Travis. He's joined by Keon Coleman. He's a wide receiver transfer from Michigan State, and then they're getting Jaheim Bell, who was a tight end from the Gamecocks. And like I said, those guys are transfers, and they're coming with Johnny Wilson and Jared Verse on the offense, but LSU quarterback, Jaden Daniels and Neighbors, they're ready for the challenge. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a barn burner, and that's one of the ones that you don't want to miss early season. And like you said, that first week, those first 2 weeks, they're loaded with potential. So that's going to be a fun one for people to watch.
That's a good one. That's a great point, because they do return basically the same rosters coming back, and they do get better by bringing the tight end over. So that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. So here's my number 3. Kind of moving up again. I'm kind of going outside the box a little bit here as well. But Pittsburgh and Syracuse, November 5th at Yankee Stadium. And this rivalry is a long time coming. I mean, they've been at this rivalry for about 1920. It goes back kind of a ways. So this would be their 70th meeting between both teams. And I think one guy that started to come on last year late was Garrett Schrader. And I think he starts to turn some heads. Not to say he's a top quarterback in the ACC or anything like that, but I think he's a guy that's kind of finding his footing every single year since transferring from Mississippi State, because he's just gotten better and better and better and better. And last year turned it on. He averaged 300 yards a game in his last 3 games of 2022. Plus, you bring back Rondé Gadsden the second. He's back, big threat, big target, produces big plays for Syracuse. And offensively, with Pittsburgh, a lot of changes for Pitt. You lose Benny Cannon to the draft. You lose Jared Wayne to the draft as well. But then steps in Rodney Hammond Jr. You then have the other guy that steps in as well, Conte Mumfield. And plus, you get the transfer quarterback from Boston College, Phil Jurkovich. So it looks like they're going to be, if anything, unpredictable. If anything else, unpredictable. So this game, I think, has that potential of an ACC kind of like slugfest a little bit. And don't sleep on this game. In the house that Ruth built, they know what they were doing. November 5th at Yankee Stadium on Monday night. Watch this game. Number 3.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising, because I didn't look at the schedule for Pitt, but do they play West Virginia again this year? Because that game that they played last year was a very good one too. So I didn't know if they're on the schedule again, because I know a lot of people are like, hey, let's bring that rivalry back. Let's have those guys play, because they're so close together. But but my number 2, so I could say our number 2, is I'm pretty sure it's the longest rivalry in college football history, and that would be the last weekend in November, Ohio State versus Michigan, the game. So if you're on Twitter, you know that there is a countdown, and I just checked today, it's been 1,273 days since Ohio State has beaten the team up north. And I say that on Twitter because each of those teams have one. So it's called a Wolverine clock, and the Ohio State clock. It's pretty funny. And the Ohio State clock, prior to 2021, they were up over 3,000 days. It was a decade before that first loss in 2021. In fact, like Ohio State, they haven't beaten Michigan since 2019. In 2020, that game was canceled because of the COVID season. Many people thought that that Harbaugh was actually afraid to play against them, because like up to that week there was like, hey, there was a lot of their guys came down with COVID, but to go off of that, 2021 comes around. A lot of people thought, hey, Ryan Day's squad, they're going to throw up, because he said, hey, we're going to throw up 100 points, but that didn't happen. They ended up getting beat, and they suffered their first loss to the Wolverines in a decade. So Combs' defense, he goes out there, couldn't stop a run. So here's some stats for 2021. This is crazy. Hassan Haskins goes for $170, 5 touchdowns, 6 yards a pop. Corum, that same game, 87 yards, 14 yards a pop. So, and they lost 42-23. 2022 comes around, new defensive coordinator, came from the Big 12, so I wasn't expecting anything crazy. Wolverines were minus Corum, but Edwards still popped off, 216 yards, almost 10 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. Second half alone, Wolverines, I believe they had 4 touchdowns that were over 75 yards. 2 of them were passing plays with missed tackles, and 2 of them were 2 long runs by Edwards. And the reason this would be like my de facto number 1, obviously, is Ryan Day's on the hot seat. It's not good for a coach to not be able to beat the team up north, and it's the same thing for Michigan. Like I'm actually surprised that Harbaugh's stuck around this long for never beating Ohio State up until 2021, because I think he was like 0-7 at one point. I think that's what it was. But like I said, both coaches revolve around this game. I mean, the whole season like revolves around this game. But it's like, so 2023, like later on in this season, I'm pretty sure we're gonna do a podcast like, is McCord the guy for Ohio State? Because a lot of people don't think he really is. And so like, can McCord and his slew of receivers, led by Marvin Harrison Jr., can they keep pace with the Michigan team if they get into like a running shootout? Well, one of the best backfields in the country, Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, be able to stay healthy long enough into the season, or will be gearing up for a new head coach rolling into 2024, because the man can't beat the guy in khakis for the 3rd straight year in a row. So that would be like my de facto number 1. And I believe that's probably everyone's number 1, would be that game.
I think for many regards, though. No, I mean, look, I'm not hating at all. Yeah. And to me, it makes sense. I mean, do those 2 teams take a lot of the national headlines? Absolutely. And I do think that with them is they tend to move the needle, good or bad, when it comes to the CFP. They definitely move the needle a lot more than expected. And I think it's funny because I never thought about this with Harbaugh and Day being on the hot seat. I think both are on the hot seat, or both are expected a lot more for different reasons. I think last year you have Ohio State not winning that game in the CFP, which people thought that they were going to. There was a belief that they would win it. They didn't. Then you kind of have Michigan kind of throwing up on themselves against TCU. That's just, I think it's a lot of pressure. I think it's a lot of pressure, and the game is the game for both coaches. So, oh yeah, believe me, this is going to be freshman 15 fodder the entire season. That's not going nowhere.
Yeah, but
that's not going nowhere.
But like one of the things is like, it's almost like it's one of those games where like you build up for that game. You play up for that game, and you kind of seen that like Ohio State played down in that game because then they took Georgia, who destroyed TCU in the national championship. The week prior, they took them to the brink, and it took them missing a field goal to lose that game without Marvin Harrison Jr. And Jackson Smith and Jimba.
So you know what? You make a compelling case. So tell you what, we're gonna slide that game and we're gonna tie it for number 1 because that is the game. Compelling argument. So that goes to you. However. Sitting there right next door at number 1 with this game, I have Washington at USC on November 4th as well. And the reason why I say this is because this game is going to have those fireworks that you want. This is going to be a primetime matchup, probably going to be on Fox Sports where everybody can see it, and maybe even ABC. Maybe ABC. So, and here's why: you got 2 top quarterbacks who I think are going top 20 in the draft very easily.
2 Heisman.
The USC defense too is still trying to get themselves together after being abysmal last year, blowing several games. Pac-12 championship, they blew that game. They blew 2 games against Utah last year, and several others. So I think that's kind of where you have this high power shootout against these 2 teams. Looking at Mike Penix, who's a tremendous arm talent, high end velocity, tight window throws. He checks every arm talent box that you want to see. Fantastic arm. Then you have last year's Heisman coming back, who has to prove himself again all over without Travis Dye. Voorhees is gone. Jordan Addison also gone. It's like starting from scratch with a guy who has a lot of potential to begin with. So I think that's that. And then also USC, the final year in the Pac-12, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So it's having to prove yourself on the way out of the Pac-12. And again, it's a big one for USC because then after that you have Oregon on the road right after that, so that there's no rest. And then again, I think this game here, I think it decides the Heisman. I think Penix has been that dark horse for a while, and I think him kind of going toe-to-toe against that defense, which he's going to have 350, 375.
Yeah.
That could be the swing game right there for the Heisman. So I think number one with Michigan, Ohio State. Number 1, Washington and USC. No question. Saturday spotlight game.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about that is, like, Lincoln Riley's offenses are tailored to quarterbacks, because everywhere he goes, he has a quarterback that's in the Heisman. 3 of them have won it,
Yep.
So it's just like, Caleb Williams is going to be good no matter what his tools are around him. And like you said, Michael Penix transferring from Indiana going to Washington, it was like a fresher breath of air for him. Completely different offense. And like you said, he's probably going to be one of the Heisman finalists. And with those 4 quarterbacks, so I'm talking Drake May, Caleb Williams, Quinn Ewers, and Michael Penix. That's a good QB class, and a lot of good quarterback play this year to watch, because next year's draft's gonna be bonkers.
Stacked, man, stacked. So, other than that, guys, if you guys like the show, like the content that we're going, believe me, we have a lot more of these discussions on the Freshman 15. We've got that, Heisman hopefuls, and just kind of rolling you guys in 1 week at a time into the college football season by way of the Freshman 15 podcast. Tyler, my man, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so and this one's gonna be pretty short here, but I was looking at like the top games, and one of them said Oregon, and with Bo Nix returning, I'm like, this guy is Van Wilder. Like, how long is he gonna play? Like, he's gonna graduate college older than Stetson Bennett. I mean, it's at this point he's gonna be like a 28-year-old graduating. So, yeah.
But you know what, though? He's actually gotten, for some reason, he's starting to kind of rise up the boards, even in the pro circles. And I still can't figure out why that is. But his name's being talked about. So even for him, it's proven. Yeah. And if you can knock off Washington in the following week, and also knock off USC after Washington, maybe we have a conversation. But other than that, our lips are sealed.
Yeah.
But other than that, guys, man, once again, Tyler, man, thanks for stopping by on Freshman 15. Guys, again, hit that like, hit that sub button. You know where to find us on IG, Twitter, wherever the case may be. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.
Peace.